Hey everyone, it's Peter from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got David Botas back to the channel. How are you, David?
I'm doing great. Hope that you're doing well, the same. And I'm excited for this one. This one's going to be really good.
It is indeed long overdue. We are going to have a chat about Fleetwood Mac, but more specifically, what I think is, in my opinion, their best album. Bit controversial, and I'm talking about Fleetwood Mac Tusk, the double album from 1979. Now, David, this when this came out, this was a follow-up to an absolutely King Kong of an album, Rumours, which I think every second household in the world has a copy, and it still sells to this day. I think with the vinyl revival, it's the number one selling vinyl album in the world.
Oh,
I don't even need to do a deep dive. I think everybody has heard at least one song off that album on planet Earth. So I think it was really incredibly difficult. How do you follow up an album that has sold so many copies? And basically, this album, it flopped. I mean, when you look at the chart placings, it did really well, sort of hit number one, number two. It sold 2 million copies in America, but at Fleetwood Mac levels, it was a bit of a disappointment. What was your first encounter with this album, David?
oh, so I've loved this album for almost 20 years now. And what made me gravitate towards it is two things. Like one, I'm a sucker for grand, like epic, statements, like grandiose statements displayed on like double albums. Um, I don't think that double albums should be considered equal to like a regular album because the length requires a different listening mode. It's like watching Lord of the Rings trilogy, and it takes a time investment. That time investment is separate from the quality, of the story and the film and stuff like that. Or this album, as we're describing now, but it's more about shifting into the mindset that can handle like a longer format. And that's why I think sometimes double albums kind of get a bad rap, because it's just like, oh, it's too long. It should have been shorter. I know what I'm getting myself into, and I want to put myself in the right mindset to get into a big, like, sprawling, like, epic. The second thing that I appreciate about this album is like you mentioned earlier. Like anytime I'm researching a band, especially one as popular as Fleetwood Mac, and I notice like on a graph, like a fall off point, whether it's the shift in critical or commercial performance, I'm drawn to it. So when an album follows, rumors and it's perceived as a disappointment, I don't take that at face value. Like that just doesn't land for me. I'm going to be contrarian. I actually go straight towards those so-called fall off albums when I'm looking into discovering a new discography. I know that that's like the against the conventional approach, but when you start with the most acclaimed accessible work, I don't want that to color, the band's like fingerprint for me. So like I always tend to be contrarian and like, for example, like when I got into Pink Floyd, they have like over a dozen albums, right? I listened to the obvious stuff, but like I went straight for the final cut. When it came to Judas Priest, like they got like what, 14 albums. I went straight to Turbo because I'm intrigued, and I didn't like, like, why didn't people like this? Like it doesn't make sense. Like in the case of Tusk, it's just 2 years after Rumors, and Rumors is freaking Rumors. Like how far could the quality have dropped here? So that's my take on what got me into this one.
Yeah, look, is it a tall poppy syndrome? Did people want to take it down? My memory, like my entry point to Fleetwood Mac, which may explain my love for this album, was this album. Because this came out in 79 and 80, and this is when I was really starting to buy albums and singles, and I was becoming much more aware of music per se. But my memory serves me right. There were only really two singles that got traction on this album, and that was Sarah and Tusk. Is that probably in America the only two songs that really get played off this album on classic rock radio?
Very my experience, I can only speak to my region and where I grew up because I realized that other songs would be more popular. For example, Sticks in the Midwest gets played a lot more than when I was growing up in the East Coast. Um, I never heard those that much when I was a kid. I heard all this stuff from like the Fleetwood Mac self-titled, like Rhiannon um and then I heard all the stuff from Rumors. You'd hear that all the time. I had to look into what were the songs, the singles from this album. Sarah and like Think About Me were the ones that I think I'll hear like every once in a while. But the format's changed when you turn radio on now than it was even 20 years ago. Never mind like 30 or 40 when I was growing up as a kid, you know?
Tusk definitely gets played a bit, but even on incidental as like a jingle, when they have sports clips or sports shows, Tusk would always get played because it's got that American college band feel about it, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
One of us, I'm sure, will be talking about that particular song. But it's a sprawling album, so there you go. You've got this really strange photograph of a dog gnawing at the leg of somebody, and to me, that shows maybe this album's got a bit of bite. It's a bit different, and it's not what you would expect as being a easy listening soft rock California band. And then you've got all these little inserts in the band, and look at this photo. What does this tell you? All eyes are on Lindsay, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's the guy. They're all wrapped around him. You're the man. This is your project, mate. And
Yeah.
let's face it, it's Lindsay's show. There is an axis. You've got Stevie, you've got Christine, but it's really Lindsay is the control master of this this album. It all wraps around him, doesn't it? And then you've got other inserts. It's very artistic photos. And now I'm starting to get a bit of a Beatles White Album feel about it, you know?
Yeah.
Look at that. Beautifully done photography, sort of modern art. It's
gorgeous.
It's sprawling. It's a sprawling. And but it just didn't sell. It was a bit more expensive. It took up a lot of real estate in the record stores, and I hazard to think that there were probably quite a few returns. And 2 million copies is pretty low returns for a double album of Fleetwood Mac's stature. So it only hit number 4 in the American charts. UK number 1, Australia number 2. But it is a bit of a disappointment. That's why their subsequent album, they had to go back to more of the Rumours sound. And, it goes from there. So, all right. So why don't we talk about, I think it's the songs is the key to this, whether you like it or not. So, David, why don't you hit me with a song? We'll put a bit of a spotlight on it and take it from there.
Yeah, right on. So I'm gonna start off with Chrissy McVie's like led Brown Eyes. So I love this song. It starts off with a nocturnal feel. A lot of the Christy and Stevie stuff in particular on this make me think of like summer nighttime. Very easy, and it's just like a summer night album. Uh, and this one builds up mid-tempo. I love the way that the drumming sounds on it. It has like a certain. I'm not a drummer. I'm not even trying to speak on it, but I love the way that Mick Fleetwood isn't like the most virtuoso. He's not Neil Peart on the drums, but he does have this sort of like, um, I guess you would say cut through. Like he does have this bit signature style to him that can be simple, but he tends to know like what works for the benefit of the song. And the song's romantic. It builds up, and the first line in it is, "You look at me with those brown eyes. What do you want to do?" And that's like 50% of the lyric right there. There's not much lyric going on in this song. I think the song is like maybe like 4.5 like minutes long. But it's the harmonies and the instrumental that just puts you into a certain mood. The other half of the vocal in it is just them going shalala, shalala, and la la la's, and you don't have to have this literal meaning to present to sort of like transmit a mood that you can feel. So when Christine says, are you just another liar, or will you take me all the way? That doesn't feel like lust to me. Like it feels like actual romanticism and like something that can be considered like real love. If it were just lust, like who would care if the person's lying or not? There wouldn't be like that much investment. The lyrics are few. The mood is powerful because they just keep it simple. The song could almost just be an instrumental, but those few lines that get added into it are just perfect. You don't need to have a story arc to feel something deeply. Sometimes like a look, a touch, like a tone, says more than words, and I feel like that's what this song is in a microcosm.
Well said. It's one of my picks, so I'll just segue off that. Look, Christine's part of the axis of Fleetwood Mac. So you've got Lindsay, Stevie, and they do songs that talk to each other, and it's very relationship and events. And then you've got Christine is part of the axis, and every time she puts a song, it's like a palate cleanser. So you've got all this angst between between Stevie and Lindsay, and then it's like a welcome relief that Christine comes with her angle and her tribulations and what's happening in her life and the relationships. It's a pretty messy, tangled story, Fleetwood Mac, with the interrelations, but it just makes great drama and great theatre and great art. Brown Eyes is great. Peter Green allegedly returned to the band and played on some licks on it. I've read some
Yeah.
interviews that Lindsay was a bit dismissive of him and didn't kind of like the guitar licks. So I'm not sure how much remains, but that was interesting that he came back into the fold. I love those metronomic drum rim clicks of
Yeah.
uh, Mick. There's so much air and space between the instruments. It's haunting, it's ethereal, the vocal harmonization. It's more of a feeling than a traditional song. I think it's one of the best songs on the album, so I think it's an outstanding choice as the lead to this show. You know, yeah, definitely, it's one of the strongest songs of the album, Brown Eyes, and at 4 minutes and 28. And a lot of these songs, a lot of the longer ones, they just take their time to reveal themselves. They're very textured. This is a real headphones album, isn't it? Because you put on the headphones and you hear stuff that you may not have heard on the last listen. It requires multiple listens, and that's why it probably didn't sell straight off the bat, because it's there's not that instant ear candy. There's stuff that, it really works the listener, but the rewards, boy oh boy, it comes out in spades.
Yeah. I know you're gonna pick it. Everybody that I talk to about this album, every time I say that Brown Eyes is one of my favorite songs, they're all, even if they don't think like the album too much, they always give it up for this one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, I'll throw it back to you. What's your next pick?
All right. So the next one is this is a Stevie song, Beautiful Child. And this one this one gets in my gut, man. Like um it starts off with Christine's like subtle, like innocent sounding piano. It reminds me of like innocence and childhood. It's like twinkling piano. Like it almost sounds like a music box, like as a kid, and it just sort of takes me there. And Stevie has this. She's pouring her heart out in this song. Maybe to herself, or at times maybe it's she's talking in the second person to somebody else. She sings "You Fell in Love When I Was Only 10." That's very heavy. At the time Stevie Nicks she wasn't 30 yet, I don't think. But she's definitely in her 20s. Like, the song builds emotionally, and the light backing vocals that come in Fleetwood Mac at times, like in this song from Lindsay and Christine. I don't know if Mick or John ever do it, but like you can definitely hear Christine and Lindsay doing like the backing vocals. They always just come in for at the right time to like sort of punctuate this spike in feeling, and even if it's only for like a couple seconds. Lyrics that go like, "I'm tall enough to reach for the stars. I'm old enough to love you from afar." That strikes deep. And it's not like this is some simple memory. Like it's something that she's carried like along since like early like emotional formation, like first love, puppy love, 10 years old, you know what I mean? Like so when she says if I never hold you again, your eyes say yes, but you don't say yes, that ambiguity hurts. Like she's sort of like stuck in the middle of like, I mean, like if she's been carrying this thing for that long, like she obviously just having a hard time like letting it go. The build of the music too, like it gives this cinematic quality because it starts off so small and then she starts laying this heavy emotional like lyric on you, and as that starts happening, the music is very loud for like a very soft song. And it's not, it's this is a special song because it's like not your average sad song. This isn't like an Adele track, like in the sense that like you're hearing somebody speak to a therapist, almost like a therapy session. And it's like you don't have the ending yet. You're just seeing raw, visceral, emotion. So the end, it like fades out and it goes back to like the childhood piano, and she's just repeating, "I wish, I wish you were mine." I feel where she's at. It's one of those songs that you can sort of feel where she's at, but it's just otherworldly, almost like how the emotion is, the pain that she's delivering in this song. It's very subtle. I love this song, man.
Yeah, look, that comes out. That really does. Well done. It's such an emotional album here, and I think it's extra. It's next level from Rumors. So I really think there's a lot of rawness in this album because they were dealing with fame. They were dealing with further residual breakup within their relationship. So there's a lot of drama happening within the band with their how they were sort of reacting with each other. Yeah, just the harmonizations, the textural harmonizations are sublime. It's probably one of my favorite albums in regards to nailing harmonization. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know whether it's the best, but it brings out a feeling in the listener that's just indescribable. So I think this is definitely the most experimental Fleetwood Mac album. And I know for a fact that, and it's been on record, that Lindsay was listening to a lot of punk, post punk, a lot of what was happening in the UK. And he was a big fan of The Clash. And a lot of these songs, a lot of the Lindsay songs, are kind of garage rock workouts, a little bit rough, bit ugly. And I'm talking about The Ledge. Somebody on YouTube put a comment, and I'll just paraphrase it. Man, this sounds like the fucking Pixies.
Yeah, yeah.
It's ugly. It's as un-California rock as you can get. It's punkish. It's strange. It's got this bass and this fuzzy, slightly distorted guitar sound. Focuses on the bottom end. And lyrically, it's a kiss off between Lindsay and Stevie Nicks. So there you go. It's another example of a song where they're just talking to each other. Maybe they could have not, sat down in their chairs and spoke to each other like that. But I think they were at that point that they wrote, they communicated via songs. I'll put another song in this category. That's enough for me. 1 minute 51. Doesn't outstay its welcome. You got that fuzzy guitar, finger picking, acoustic skiffle meets new wave. It's punkish, it's jerky. And I put this in the same category. It shares the same universe as The Ledge. What do you think of these punkish Lindsey Buckingham songs?
They took a while to grow on me. I mean, it's like almost 20 years. It took a couple of years to grow on me. Like I just love them now. I truly do. It's Lindsay. So here's the thing about him. When he did stuff on Rumors and on the self-titled, he already is his own. Like I never listened to Lindsey Buckingham before this and thought that he sounded like anybody else. He already has like his own like autonomy and identity, that he has his own uniqueness to him. And in this sense, this is where you're seeing the artist sort of like react to what's going around, kind of like Bowie would do. Always known for that, always sort of reacting to what is around and doing his own take on it. And there's still that Lindsey Buckingham country sort of like Southern California, like a country guitar likeness still in there, but it's equal parts like Pixies, like you said, equal parts like lo-fi, experimental. It definitely sounds like he's not. You still don't listen to this and think, oh, this is him doing the Clash or him doing Public Image Limited or anything like that. He doesn't. He's not. It doesn't sound like the Talking Heads. Like it still sounds like Lindsey Buckingham, but like I love that he maintained his identity and he went as far as he pushing like his own envelope as much as he could. They said that they were inhibited by the expectations of what everybody loved about Rumors and Rhiannon and everything like that came before, and they had to kind of like to be who they were, like Lindsay and Stevie, at least at this point, like they're experimental people. They have their own unique thing, and they want to kind of like buck what is people are supposed to expect. True artists thrive that way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I think he was listening to what was happening, and it comes out through him, but in a different sort of way. You know what I mean? It's distinctly Lindsey Buckingham, but I don't know, a bit more bite, a bit more edge. And it all comes back to this album cover, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is no West California, easy listening album. This is going to challenge the listener. Albums that challenge the listener, do they equal commercial sales? I don't think so. There's not too many in the history of rock that really sell like hotcakes. People have an expectation of how a band should sound, and if they go into a left field direction, then it doesn't work so well.
I think that one thing that I always doesn't get mentioned enough when people talk about metrics of success of an album, something else was going against this. Like this album was like ridiculously priced. It was like price gouged. Like it was like double the price of like a normal album in the record stores. And that has to be included as an ingredient in like the effect of like why people just like didn't grab onto it and buy it as much. There was more than just like the fatigue of 4 years of ad nauseum radio hits that sort of like caused like this album to sort of be overlooked. It was price gouged.
Well, there's a good angle there. Is it the public perceiving Fleetwood Mac as being arrogant? How dare you charge this for this album? How dare you not deliver something that I expect? How dare you go experimental? People have this sort of expectation. That's where the backlash was, because there was a fair amount of backlash off this album. It was just too whacked.
Yeah.
For people to sort of gravitate to and put their arms around it. And it's just such, and that's more, that's a little bit of a disappointment because there are so many gems on this album, as you've described, like Brown Eyes and, and some other songs that we'll talk about. So, all right, well, what's the next one that you want to put a bit of a showcase on?
Okay, so shifting gears completely here from Beautiful Child Stevie Nicks. I love Honey High, Christine McVie's song. This is just like a light, warm, like blissful, again, like 4 o'clock in the morning, summer, first week of summer, you're just waking up and like instead of it being a bad thing, everything is sort of like going right, and it's just so nice and easy. It's like being at like a stream or something like that. And there's a lot of like a sense of like calm achievement. Everything's gonna be okay. Everything is okay. Um, Honey High feels like that. The title alone exudes like a sweetness and like a simplicity. So again, it's like something that's simple, like innocence, like child, but it's a completely different like vibe with this. Not a lot of lyrics in this, not like Stevie's like long confessional. Like she sings, Lord, I really love you. Don't take the love light away because I'm far away from home. That might reflect like, being on tour and missing somebody. The lyrics are simple, but there's beauty in that. And this is the thing about this album, Peter. I think you may agree with this. Like, this album swings you. Like, one track is over here and another track is over here, and it's not swinging in the sense of getting like dizzy and nausea or motion sickness. It's like you're sort of like at an amusement park and you're happy and you're like, this ride's here and that ride's there, and it just sort of like takes you along where it's not stagnant at all, and it never feels like it's sort of like overstaying its welcome, even though it's a long album, because of that swing that happens. Like, 1 minute it's melancholy, the next it's sunny. But it all comes together with those harmonies. They're all still feeling like it's a the more that I've listened to this album as time has gone on, the more that the resolution has been that it does sound cohesive to me. It didn't upon first listening at all. It sounded like three solo albums, or like a Fleetwood Mac album and like a Lindsay solo like meshed together. You know,
Yeah, yeah, that's a common complaint about this album, but I guess it's one of those ones where you've got to have repeated listens, and it does win you over. I mean, there are certain songs on this album that hit you between the eyes straight away, but a lot of the other songs on the album, it takes a while, and it really does charm the pants off you. Next one I'm going to talk about is the single, Sarah. I love this
Mm.
song. 6 minutes and 31 seconds. It takes its time. It's in no rush. It's got this real languid pace, and I say the word languid in a nice way. It just reveals itself in its own pace, and it reveals all its charm. I love that echoey piano, and Stevie Nicks' voice just wafts in, and it's so beautifully textured, this album. It's got sounds and textures. You've got these beautiful vocal harmonies right in the background, and you've got these nice little acoustic lines of Buckingham. They just weave in and weave out. Lyrically, it was pretty much about Mick. So he was apparently the Great Dark Wing, and according to Stevie, it was about everything that was going on at that particular time. But he was the reason, the beginning of it, quote unquote. So I think it's on record that Stevie had a relationship with Mick, and then there's another person in this relationship, this triangle called Sarah. It sort of all works from there. So in his 2014 autobiography, Fleetwood agreed with the suggestion that the song referred to an affair with a friend named Sarah, which ended his relationship with Nicks. Fleetwood and Nicks had been involved in a romantic relationship in the late 70s. So there you have it. It's all the drama of Fleetwood Mac in one song, but it's a beautiful song. And this got a lot of airplay. In these parts, it gets played to this very day on classic rock radio. What do you think of this song?
Oh, I love it. I think it was the first song I heard from the album. Um, it's interesting, like, when I first heard this album, it was like 2008. And when I researched who Sarah was, I saw that like Mick Fleetwood was like you said, like the dark wing or the dark character that gets mentioned in it. But but I thought I also read that like Stevie was talking about like Don Henley at the same time, and like the person is like an amalgamation of it, and she was going to have a baby with Don Henley, and then they didn't want it to follow through. So, because she does bring up the name Sarah again on one of her solo albums, like some years later in the '80s. So, or maybe I don't know if it's Tango in the Night or if it's one of her solo albums. So it makes sense that like it would be Mick would be the one that sort of she had they had these crazy relationships where they were very open and free love or whatever, and the Eagles got entangled in stuff. I think that she dated Randy Meisner and she dated Joe Walsh at some point too, like, so a lot of stuff going on like back then.
Yeah, I'm lost. I've got my notepad and pen, and I've just been writing it down, and it's like a scribble. I can't work it out. but the music lives for everyone, folks. Don't try to follow the linear line, the lineage of these relationships. But it's such a great song. I was actually, because I play piano, I was actually playing along to this last night, and I really loved the Christy McVie piano lines. There's just a couple of very simple chords around F, and it really drives it. So it's the ultimate slow build song, where she's doing these lyrics, and it gets more. She's revealing more about the situation. Every verse, and it gives you a little bit more to the story, and it really sort of you can't turn off the song. You've got to hear what's going to happen. What's the resolution? Is there a resolution? Even just the little bits with Christy McVie on piano, it's part of the mix. It's part of the stew. All right.
Agreed.
What's your next one that you'd like to showcase?
Well, the next one, probably my favorite Lindsey Buckingham track on it, maybe. A lot of competition, is I Know I'm Not Wrong. So, like I said, it took me a while to grow into the Lindsey material. Love it now. This track, the reason why this one's my favorite is because he has beautiful melodic vocal presence on this song. And the line, "Don't blame me" is sung very, very melodically. It's delivered with this soaring melodic phrasing, and it feels optimistic. Even though the lyrics are kind of like bitter, or they're not necessarily the happiest lyrics. So there's that dichotomy here that happens in music where you have the upbeat music, but the words might be painful. And the contrast feels like you're trying to find light in the dark, I think. Like maybe, like he's exorcising demons from like a bad experience. And he says something like her lips, her eyes, her eyes look sad, the dreams of a lifetime gone bad. That hints at like disillusionment and like heartbreak. But the song's performance like feels like this like burst of like a resilience. So if I didn't hear the words on this song, I would just pass it as some like proto indie pop, like catchy like bop. Like no rhyme intended, but like it really does sound like stuff that came like 30 years later in like a McCartney Linda Ram type of way. Like a lot of lo-fi like ground being covered here and
yes.
And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're spot on. Lo-fi. There's a little bit of, I can hear a little bit of McCartney 1 in this album.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
a little bit more punky, a little bit more up-tempo, a little bit more spiky.
Yeah. And you can tell by those pictures that you showed, like the album sleeve pictures. 1979 always was this like amorphous period because it's still the 70s and this album still sounds like the 70s. Like most of the Christy and Stevie Nicks material on this would have fit in congruent like with Rumors or been like a B-side to Rumors, I think. I don't know if you feel that way too, but I think that. But it's this time that it's like he's wearing like the suit and he's got his hair short now, and it's this time that it's like it's not quite the 70s anymore. It's about to be the 80s. The aesthetic that exists in 79 visually still kind of like goes on until like 83, 84. By the time it's like 88, it's different, but like there's still this like bit of like it's some people have their foot in what's been rooted for the past like 5 or 10 years, but there's a foot into the future. You got like Gary Newman out at this point doing big things and talking heads and stuff like that, and that's not the same thing as like 1971. But the
Absolutely.
Christy McVie stuff, yeah, the Stevie stuff, those songs could have probably been like released like in the early 70s maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the era where the CBGBs was starting to hit the mainstream, where Talking Heads and Blondie, they were hitting the mainstream and you were starting to hear them on the radio. precursor to bands like the Pretenders, bands where there was a little bit more, there was a little bit of edge. Song structures were a bit incongruent. They weren't so traditional. If you wanted to do a single that lasted 6 minutes and took its time to reveal itself, so be it. If you wanted to do a 2-minute song that was spiky and edgy and guitar based, yeah, let's do it. It was just, let's just throw things into the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Sisters of the Moon, another
Yeah.
beautiful song. It's quiet, it's slow, and it's the ultimate build-up song. It's got so much kinetic energy. The instrumentation is textured, it's layered, and you've got this wonderful searing guitar work of Buckingham at the end. Isn't Lindsay a great guitarist? He's underrated,
Oh
isn't he?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
What was that album they did later? That live album when they did the reunion, was that called The Dance?
The Dance, yeah, I think it was like 97.
I always think of the guitar work he did on that live album, and just it was finally just put front and center for everybody, because that album really did well. What a great guitarist he was, or he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That solo on I'm So Afraid, that's like freaking Dave Gilmour, type of solo. Like he's just as great as like all the great soloists. He just doesn't get he
No,
doesn't get the notice for it.
you never see him in the list, do you? You don't see him on the
No.
top 100, or he just doesn't get recognized. Dark Lady in the Room, Coming to Grips with Fame. What do you think of this song?
Oh, I love it. Um, I'm trying to think, is this the most rockin' Stevie Nicks song on the album?
One of them, I mean, there's a build up. It just builds like a snowball.
Yeah. As far as like this, to me, this one is like this one's got a bit of a bite to it. Even though it's still a buildup, it's not frenetic the way that the Lindsey Buckingham stuff is on it. There's still Stevie Nicks has like those occult stuff that she's into that she alludes to, Sisters of the Moon. Um, uh, uh, I dig that. That gives her like that's one of the elements of Fleetwood Mac that sort of it gives that dimension of like those like metal bands and classic rock bands. Like she's
Well,
not Dio, but like it's the closest thing you're gonna get to it on Fleetwood Mac.
she's the witchy woman, isn't she? She's got this
Yeah,
persona,
right.
the gypsy, the witchy woman, and boy, did she just she took that persona into a solo career, and it paid off in spades. She had this wonderful little solo career going off the back of that. So that's her persona, and you've got so many diverse personalities in this band, but it works. One thing, so I think this is like the White Album,
Yeah, me too.
where you have a lot of the artists, they bring their own material to the album. Um, a lot of the Fleetwood Mac folk would play on it, but it's driven by that particular artist. Do you think this is Lindsay's album? He is because that was the first comment that may have been a little bit outrageous, but I said, Lindsay, this is Lindsay's album, and the rest are wrapping around it. Do you think he is the one who's taking the control of this? It's got his fingerprints all over it, this whole concept?
You could make that argument. I think that when you have so the Axis, the three songwriters, right? They're all making strong statements, but I think because the quality to me is lateral. Um, I do prefer the Stevie and Christie stuff too, but that's like saying that I prefer the Paul stuff on the White Album as opposed to John. It's like this is some of the greatest music ever made. Period. Like this, it's difference by of a minuscule degree. I think that the reason why you have a good point there about it being Lindsay is because even though they're all equal, like strong statements, one of them is sticking out for a reason. One of the statements is sort of moving the band and actually like altering the image, changing the what the how the band is viewed. Well, if Lindsay didn't do that, then the band would just sort of be the same, have its same identity that they had with Rumors or with the album. You know, coincidentally, they have an album called the White Album. They're self-titled. They call that the fans call that the White Album too. But doesn't it irk you? So, you like the White Album a lot, right? I know you're a big Beatles fan. You ever notice how sometimes you'll meet another Beatles fan that just does not like the White Album, or they think it's so spotty. That's how I feel when people will sort of like turn their nose to Tusk. It's great, like it's everywhere, and it's not the album that hubs all of the hits. Like it's a slow burn.
Yeah, look, in Fleetwood Mac fan, there's a couple of narratives. We didn't like it when we only liked the early Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green. One narrative. Rumors is the only album I listened to, and the third one is Tusk Sucks.
Yeah.
That's basically it. And I'll probably a fourth narrative that you want to have is unless these guys are in the band, it's not Fleetwood Mac. Because, I think in the late 80s and early 90s, they had different variations, but
Yeah.
it didn't do so well. So, you got a double album. And this is in the era of the vinyl age. What side do you go to? Would you play the album in sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, or would you go to a particular side? So I know you haven't got the track listing in front of you, but just have a look at that.
Yeah.
That in focus. What would you play? Would you go in order? Look, I'm pretty anal. I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, but would you go in a different order? Just mix it up a little bit. Maybe you'd like to go to side 3. Angel, that's enough for me. Brown Eyes, that's a very strong side.
That's a strong side. I take to your point about mixing it up, because the first couple of years when I wasn't so like warm to the Lindsay stuff, I made a playlist of just the Stevie and Christie material, and I listened to that a lot. And after I like listened to that a lot and really got into it, then I started like dipping my toe into the Lindsay stuff, and then I fell in love with it too. But at the beginning, like it was kind of like, let me try to just like surgically remove what seems jarring and is a little bit too like noticeably like different, and let me just try to digest this thing like where it's going to be easier to sort of swallow. It's such a payoff album. Like it's a grow, just like you said, the certain songs they built, that's a microcosm of what this album is. Like it wasn't always my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what next song do you want to showcase?
Okay, I got so this is one that I've heard covers of that sound amazing. You got a great song. It's great when you got different people that can cover it as well. And that's Storms. So again, Stevie Nicks, he's doing just like Brown Eyes and Beautiful Child, like it's a moody track. And it's not sensual, and it's not sensual like Brown Eyes. It's not tragic on the other whole spectrum as like Beautiful Child. Um, it's it's I resist using the word tired, because that sort of like brings about that the song like has an annoying quality to it. It's not that. It sounds like someone who's um singing a beautiful song, like the song's a 10 out of 10, but they're just sort of like fatigued with an emotional like situation. And the lyric, every night that goes by, I feel a little less. That's that tone. She sings, every night that you don't come, your softness fades away. Did I ever really care that much? Is there anything left to say? This isn't like decades long longing like the way that Beautiful Child is. Um, this feels more recent. It feels like a recent sort of like pain, like almost like she's given up. I should say given up instead of saying tired. Um, I read in an interview that Lindsay, when they were asked about like how Lindsay felt about how Stevie performed on the album. He used this song as an example. He said that this song is like a whisper from Stevie. And she, like I said, she confesses a lot in her lyrics. When she sings, I try to say goodbye, my friend. Never have I been a blue, calm sea. I've always been a storm. That implies that, maybe she lost it like the night before or the week before, or she lost control in a relationship at some point. Like she might have had a breakdown and she got emotionally overwhelmed by someone. And now, sober, reflective, like in hindsight, she's sort of asking for forgiveness for she's asking for acceptance of her chaos. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that's very Stevie Nicks.
Love it. Acceptance of her chaos. It's a quote of the
she's
day.
self-aware. She knows that she's got that wild Gemini spirit. Like
Yeah. I think you really like the girls in Fleetwood Mac because a lot of your choices are gravitating to that. I mean, you appreciate and Lindsay, but you're really taking a shine to Christine and Stevie. And look, there's a lot of magic. Fleetwood Mac, did you have a album where that was it for you and you dropped off after? For me, it's Tango in the Night. I like it. It's not a perfect album, but the highs are so high, and I think after that I just sort of lost interest in the band. Is there a particular album in their discography that you just thought that was it for me?
So to take your point about me liking the girls in the band, like the women in the band, I love this album so much that I think that it's, even though I love what they did on the previous two albums, even the Stevie and Christine compositions take the cake on this one. Like I really do think that they're even outdoing what they did as far as their previous identity. I spent so much time with that 70s, those three 70s, like that trilogy there. The self-titled Rumors and Tusk, that this is the album where I didn't really pay attention that much afterwards. I've changed that though. I've gone back and I took interest in Mirage, and I think I listened to Tango in the Night for the first time attentively last year, and I liked it. And they're just a mixed. There's such a mixed bag. I was listening to Mystery to Me, like the Bob Welch era, a couple of days ago too. I haven't disliked anything that I've heard from all the eras. I just feel like I need a certain amount of time and I want to be in the mood to sort of like want to study Fleetwood Mac. So like the I don't have a definitive like drop off point because I'm still accepting and I'm still listening to all of it. You know what I mean?
Very, very good. Well, I think we should wrap this show up with a discussion of the song Tusk, if you don't mind. So,
Sure.
This was probably the oddest single that was released by Fleetwood Mac ever. It hit the top 10 all around the world. I think the hook in this song is definitely, it's got that sort of American football, college band, the brass. When you look at the structure of this song, it is very strange. There's even some African tribal bits and pieces in it. You've got a bit in the song where it just breaks into a drum solo. It's totally oddball. The vocals are very low down in the mix. It's a really wacky song, but it works. It really does. And this really was the benchmark for the album, because this was the indication that this album is not going to be your typical Fleetwood Mac album. This is going to be something that's avant-garde, adventurous, experimental, all of those words. What do you think of Tusk?
It's kind of like it's like Lindsay's like, okay, this is going to be our Strawberry Fields Forever. Like we're going to show you that what's coming up next is not what you expected. I really like this song now, but I'll tell you, for a long time, this was the only skip for me.
Really?
Yeah, I was
Really?
very disappointed by this song. I was waiting for like, where's Fleetwood Mac? Like,
there you go. That's why a lot of folks don't like this album, because it's the people don't like when artists take a left turn. This is the example, isn't it?
And this doesn't even sound like the other Lindsay stuff on the album. Like a lot of the other Lindsay stuff on the album sounds congruent. It's experimental, but it sounds like it's from the same album. This one doesn't even. Maybe it's because of the brass and stuff like that. It's got like the USC. One of my buddies was like, "You got to bring up the USC marching band," and he loves this song. He told me, "He goes, oh, you got to like it. You got to like it." And I went back to it. I was like a couple years ago. I was like, you know what? I like it now. I think it's great. But it's like listening to freaking Emerson, Lake and Palmer, like Tank or something like that. Like at first, it's like, what is this? Like, and I love that now, but it's so um it's so like like experimental. I guess like it never gets labeled progressive, but I think that's because it would bring up a different type of connotation. Um,
It's
I
weird.
think it's cool. It's weird, yeah.
It's weird. It's compelling. And I think if they had an extra hour, if they had more millions and an extra year to record this album, because this album was took a long time, burned a lot of money, and Warner's were
Yeah.
probably sort of tapping the table, or more so thumping the table and saying, "Where are we getting our album?" You probably would have got a triple album and got more songs like Tusk.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Maybe that's why they put that high price tag on it because it was like the most expensive album like at the time when it got recorded.
And David, it was the lead single of the album. This was the first single of the album.
Yeah. This is a Molotov cocktail to like the image of Fleetwood Mac as everybody knew what they were. It's like this is what you expect from us. Well, guess what? Here's Tusk.
Yeah, look, when I first heard it, I go, wow. But it took me a while. It took me a while, and yeah, absolutely. It's a single that was an absolute grower. Today, at least in Australia, it's a jingle. It's on sports shows. You know, when they do highlight clips of American football, for some reason over here, they always play that song.
Yeah, it's like it's not as popular as like "We Will Rock You, Queen," but it's one of those songs that always gets attached to like sports, like sport arena type things.
Yeah,
I get it's because of the brass and everything. The music video is on like a football field or something, isn't it?
It is. I think if ESPN had a radio library or a music library of songs that they should put at clips, they go, oh, what do we? Yeah, let's play Tusk. It'd definitely be in the top 10 of the most played songs attached to sporting clips on ESPN or whatever those other channels are.
I think they're still trying to make that money back, mate. I think they're like, let's let people know this is great so we can sell some more copies of this album. It's been overlooked.
Fun talking with you, David. I think this is an absolute masterpiece. It's a gem. I'm unabashed, totally contrarian. This is the most contrarian view. I think this is their masterpiece. I love it. And I actually gravitate to this album more than Rumours. Love Rumours, love Mirage, love Tango in the Night. But this is the album I go to.
Yeah.
And folks, you mightn't like it. I really would love to read your comments, if one way or the other. But it's a slow burn. You've got to just keep listening at it, and it really works the listener. But the payoff is immense.
Absolutely. Yep. We didn't disagree much on this one. This is our favorite. It just happens to be both of our favorite Fleetwood Mac albums.
We agree, and we're contrarian. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Folks, please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. We really appreciate your comments. Tell us what your favorite Fleetwood Mac album is, songs, what you think of this album. David and I will talk offline briefly and work out our next show. But David's part of the Rock Daydream Nation family. We'll do some more shows in 2025. Cheers. All the best. Bye.
Thank you.
See ya.